Hello everybody, today for you I have a Frog Exceed deck for the Tengu plant format. This deck's main objective is to take advantage of the powerful effect of Infernal Reckless Summon in order to summon the new Exceed monsters Tiras and Adrius. To start the list off, we of course play 3 Caius, a staple of any Frog deck. 1 Dark Arm Dragon. This deck does play a large amount of dark monsters that set up for Dark Arm Dragon very easily, like Tour Guide, Sangin, Trigodia, Gores, and the Caiuses. We play 3 Desfrogs in this deck. We're going to be summoning Desfrog through 2 different methods. We're going to be using Infernal Reckless Summon. To Infernal Reckless Summon Desfrog, all you need to do is special summon a Ronintonin and then activate the Infernal Reckless Summon. Now your opponent does need to control a monster. Ideally they would control an extra deck monster or a monster they only control one of, but there are other interesting scenarios that can happen. Like if your opponent summons a Tengu, you can special summon out all of their Tengus and then at the same time summon in your 3 Desfrogs, so you can kill all their Tengus and get all their Tengus out of play at the same time, which is very useful because the problem with the Tengu plant matchup usually arises when they are able to synchro combo with their Tengus. Desfrog can also be summoned by having Tadpole in the grave. If you have Tadpole in the grave, you'll be able to summon an additional Desfrog, allowing you to access rank 5 plays. You also can use your Swap Frog extra normal summon to summon the Desfrog, right? So let's say you have Treeborn in play and you have Swap Frog and Desfrog in hand. You can go ahead, summon Swap Frog, send the Tadpole to grave, bring back the Swap Frog to your hand, tribute summon the Desfrog over the Treeborn to then summon another Desfrog and make your rank 5. We play 3 Desfrog, of course. This card can also search your Desfrog if you already have the Tadpole in play in order to do rank 5 plays. This can be particularly good when you have a Desfrog equipped to a Sea Lancer because it gives you follow-up to search a Desfrog at that point, right? You'll have a rank 5 play as follow-up. We play 3 Feck Veiler and 3 Maxi in this list. We're not playing traps, so we do play a max hand trap ratio in order to stop our opponent from comboing. Maxi is particularly good in a frog list where you're playing Trigodia and Gores, of course. We play 2 Roninton, 3 is unnecessary. This is before you start seeing more rank 2s. At this point you only have Gachi. So an additional Ronintonin is not going to give you access to anything more. In all the scenarios where you might think, oh, I could use a 3rd, you could easily just tribute off the 2nd one and then summon it again, right? So a 3rd one would really just be a brick at the end. Sangin has a lot of utility in this deck. It's able to search not only your frog cards, your hand traps, it's also able to search Sea Lancer. Sea Lancer is very good in this deck, guys. Sea Lancer allows you to equip all of your banished fish, sea serpents, or aquas to him as equip cards. So all the frogs that you've banished with your Ronintonins will become equipped to him, and they'll still get their effects, like Desfrog will still be able to float for a frog. So it not only creates more advantage for you in that way, but it also becomes hard for your opponent to deal with. It gains 1,000 attack while it has a monster equipped to it, and if it would be destroyed, you destroy one of the equipped cards instead. So your opponent's going to have to commit something to remove that. We play 3 Swap Frog, of course. Now Swap Frog has some pretty good synergy with cards like Tour Guide, right? So if you special summon Swap Frog by discarding cards, send Roninton to the grave, you'll be able to then summon your Tour Guide, make Leviair, and special summon that card you banished, right? So you're able to get an additional frog into play. You're able to use your Tour Guide to make a Leviair to get a frog back. If that Leviair sticks, you're going to be able to gain even more advantage off of it. It's also going to give you a Gachi at the same time as you're making the Leviair. With the frog you special summon back in the Swap Frog, so it's going to be less likely your opponent's going to get over that Leviair in their opening play, which is very good. We play 3 Tour Guide in this deck for the reasons I just explained. It's able to get you your Sangin, 2, which is going to get you into your Frog Engine faster. It's going to make your Dark Arms live faster. It's just a strong addition to the Frog Engine at this time. I think the Frog Engine is something that people need to explore a lot more in Tengu plants. It's something I'm going to be continuing to look at in the future. We of course play 2 Tragodia. This deck does a good job of maintaining its hand size with cards like Sangan and the Dupe Frogs and the hand traps. So Tragodia is always going to be a force to be reckoned with. We only play 1 Treeborn in this list. I often will side an additional Treeborn, but people don't play DD Crow as much as they do in Edison in Tengu plants, because you have much more powerful hand traps like Maxi and Effect Veiler. We play only 2 Econ. Econ is a tricky card because its value only comes when your opponent's really has been aggressive already. We first play Dark Hole, and the most interesting card in here is the Infernal Reckless Summons. I'm going to read it to you guys so you'll understand. When exactly 1 monster with 1500 or less attack is special summoned to your field while your opponent controls a face-up monster, special summon as many monsters as possible with the same name as the summoned monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard in attack position, and your opponent also gets to do that with a monster they control. So as I mentioned previously, you do want to do it ideally when it's a card your opponent only plays 1 of, or it's an extra deck monster. But there are scenarios where it's not going to be a big deal if your opponent special summons more of a card, especially since you're going to be getting 3 Des Frog to the field, so you're going to be able to attack over a lot of those cards potentially. Infernal Reckless Summon gives you a much more explosive play, so you Infernal Reckless Summon on your own Tone Summon. Get your 3 Des Frogs that can be special summoned from anywhere, except removed. And at that point you can make a Adrius, pop your opponent's monster, so you'll have the Adrius for 2600, you'll have the 1 Des Frog for 19, and then you could also use that Ronin to make a Gachi, which is going to give you a substantial amount more boost, which will potentially lead for you pushing for game damage. So that's an aggressive play the deck can do. In the extra deck, we have some other things you can consider playing. Of course, you could play BLS. You only play 3 Effect Veiler, but you do have access to Tiras, which is an additional light, so that's something I definitely might think about. You also have, of course, Poison Draw Frog. Poison Draw Frog is great when equipped to Sea Lancer because it's going to give you additional draws. You could play an additional Tadpole in order to make your normal summons of Des Frogs for 3 Des Frogs. I don't think it's really worth it personally. Maxi, of course, is a card you'd want to side. Maybe you could main it to make sure your plays go through. You could definitely play Pot of Avarice in this deck. It's kind of contradictory with the Dark Arm and their own Tonin, but there are cards like the hand traps and stuff, and the tour guides which you could come back to feel your deck more. Salvage was really good in this list when I was initially testing it. It really makes Swap Frog a much more powerful card. You can use it to get back your Sea Lancers also. Recycling Sea Lancers can really gain you a lot of advantage in the long run. Very good, of course. You could play the 3rd Sea Lancer, but unfortunately, I feel like without the salvages, it's not getting live necessarily fast enough to make it very good to have potentially 2 Sea Lancers in your opening hand. In the extra deck, a few things to note. We of course have the Adrius. Adrius can detach a material to pop a face-up card your opponent controls, and you have the Tiras, which is a little bit more complicated. This card's effect can only be applied or resolved while it has exceed materials. This card cannot be destroyed by card effect. At the end of the battle phase, if this card attacked or was attacked, target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it, and detach a material from this during each of your end phases. So this card allows you to destroy things when it battles. So it's a very versatile card. It can't be destroyed by card effects, so your opponent's not going to be able to remove it with things like Dark Hole. They're pretty good cards. I often ended up finding myself make Adrius more often because I was having to deal with larger problematic monsters. I think they're pretty strong. This deck really is the earliest introduction to the rank 5 strategy. This is probably the earliest rank 5 deck you could make at the time to take advantage of these new Exceeds that came out in Generation Force. You of course play 3 Gachi Gachi. Gachi Gachi's effect is if you would be destroyed, attach a material instead, and face-up monsters you control gain 200 attack and defense. for each material. So this is going to boost all your monsters. It's going to make the deck a little bit more formidable. It's going to allow you to push for game damage in scenarios with things like Desfrog. Very useful. So of course you play 3, and it allows you to create value with those Ronin Totems, something that previously could only be really used for tribute fodder. So it's a nice addition to the Frog engine in Tengu plant format. We play 2 Leviair. Leviair is probably the strongest thing you can make with your tour guide, allowing you to get back frogs you banished with Ronin Totem. So let's say you Leviair back a swap frog, you can then use that swap frog to send the Ronin Totem, or a monster to banish for Ronin Totem, and then make a Gachi Gachi Getetsu, which can be very useful. You know, your opponent has to deal with Gachi Gachi with something, right? It's not something they can just swing over. They're going to have to commit, right? 2 Leviairs, an additional target for tour guide, of course. We play a few synchros just to take advantage of our effect failures in some scenarios. So guys, that is my Frog Exceed deck for the Tengu plant format. If you have any ideas for additions to this deck, let me know in the comments, and I hope you have a nice day.